So now that we've talked about the reasons why someone would be an anti-imperialist, the things that they disagree with imperialism that would make them not like it, we need to talk about the group of people that actually fall under that anti-imperialist category. Now, the one thing you need to know is that there are tons of different anti-imperialist groups, both at the local level and the national level. So they're just kind of everywhere. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the largest of those groups, which is known as the Anti-Imperialist League. This is created in 1898, so right in the middle of the time period we've been talking about, and is created as a direct response to the Spanish-American War and what happens in the Philippines after the Spanish-American War. So the Philippines were involved in the war, and we actually gained control of them as a result. We purchased them from Spain, and they're fighting to gain their independence. And obviously we're fighting them back because we've just bought them and we want control of them. So our anti-imperialists are going to form this huge anti-imperialist league, and it's one of the largest groups of anti-imperialists in the country at the time, because they're seeing the ugly side of imperialism. They're seeing how much money it costs because we're fighting, so the military is involved. Eventually, after the military is involved, we're going to be setting up a government. So again, still a lot of money going towards the Philippines. They're also seeing a lot of obviously the war that's happening, so the military campaigns and fighting, but also the atrocities that the military is committing against the Filipino people. So they're seeing a lot of very negative stuff that imperialism is doing in the Philippines, and this is one of the first times that America is imperializing. So these anti-imperialists realize this is not what our country needs to be doing, and they're going to try to stand up. And that's why they're creating this organization. The issue is that these members don't have a heck of a lot of stuff in common. There's tons of different people that belong to the Anti-Imperialist League because there's different reasons you can disagree with imperialism, which we talked about in the last video. So they all agree imperialism is not good. That's the general gist of it, but they have tons of different reasons for why. And a lot of these are actually people you should recognize because of other stuff they've done. So you have Andrew Carnegie, who is our steel monopoly owner, a big businessman, one of the richest men in America. You also have people like Jane Addams, who is like the foundational social reformer and kind of creates the job of social worker. So, she's very different from Carnegie. And then we have Samuel Gompers, who is actually a really big workers' rights and labor union guy. Obviously, also very different from our first two people here. And the last person it's kind of really noticeable is Mark Twain. You may not recognize him, but you might have recognized his name. He's actually a really famous author during this time frame. He writes Huckleberry Finn and some other novels, but he also coins the term Gilded Age, which is the term that kind of defines this time frame, because there's lots of not good stuff happening, but from the outside it looks all shiny and new. So an object that's gilded normally has a layer of gold on the object. So it looks shiny from the outside, but if I were to peel off that gold, it's not so nice. And that's exactly the way that he feels about our society during this time. And that includes what's happening with imperialism. So it sounds good. It sounds like we're getting resources. But if I dig in a little bit deeper, there's a lot of problems that are going to come along with imperialism. So you can see just from this select group of people I thought you might know, they're all really different and have different reasons for wanting imperialism gone. Okay? So as you can imagine, the anti-imperialists aren't super successful. It's the imperialist perspective that's going to win out. We're going to be gaining control of more and more land and territories across the world. But this is actually kind of a good thing that we have the anti-imperialists. They're actually really important because they represent another side of imperialism. They're going to be sparking a public conversation about our country's role in international affairs. and how we relate to foreign land and foreign people. So they are doing something really important for us as a country and for us historically, even if it feels like they're just kind of this little group that pops up and then disappears when, what they want doesn't happen. So this is going to become increasingly important, this conversation that they start about our role in the world, as we're continuing to grow and become a world power. And especially because we're leading towards World War I. And World War I is going to set us off to be an even bigger world power. And some of the things that the anti-imperialists bring up are still questions that we wrestle with today. Things about, what is our role in the world, and what is our place in relation to other countries, and how do we interact with other countries, are also questions that we're asking ourselves constantly and change over time as the world around us is changing.